ocean at a time.
Welcome back to the Enjoy the Walk podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty special guest today, Dante. You know, when we've talked about it time and time again, just the importance of junior golf and kind of, helping that next generation get into the game. And I think it's the key vital part of growing the game. When we talk about junior golf, I think there's no better platform than the AJGA. You know, it's kind of, we said it before we got on air, it seems to be the number one like recruiting platform for college coaches to go to and for kids to get recognized. So with that being said, really happy to bring on a kind of legend in the junior golf scene, I would say, over the past few decades. Stephen Hamblin from the AJGA has brought not only kind of junior golf to the forefront within the last few decades. He took an organization that, when he was 29 years old in 1984, it only hosted like 13 tournaments a year. And now they host over 100 tournaments and growing each and every year. So it's just great to see from the junior golf side of things, it continue to grow. So Stephen, really happy you could join us.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
For sure. Yeah, it was one thing when we first started out and doing podcasts, it was like, how can we kind of reach a good demographic of what we believe in it? And I think that side of things is junior golf. So again, blessed to have you on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So take us through, we mentioned really early on when you took over the AJGA, it was a very small kind of, budding, growing platform for the junior golf industry, but take us through, what made you take over the AJGA in 1984?
Well, I was fortunate to work for a gentleman by the name of Jay Overton at Innisbrook Resort. I was a club professional at the Copperhead, where they now, host a PGA Tour event. And my first year in 1980 at Innisbrook, the AJGA had a Thanksgiving tournament there called the American Junior Classic. And I got to see young men like Davis Love and his father, Billy Andrade, Tracy Phillips, Tommy Moore, Heather Farr. And I was just totally taken with the passion, the dedication by these young men and women, their commitment to golf. I was blown away. I mean, these were 15 and 16-year-old kids, but they were disciplined and worked hard, and they'd lose a match and come by the golf shop and, hey, pro, thanks for a great week. Love the Copperhead. And I went, who are these kids? I mean, these kids are unbelievable. And it sparked in me a passion for junior golf. And fortunately, I did a good enough job for the AJGA as the resident professional of the Copperhead for them to kind of look at me as a potential candidate for hire. And they hired me in 1984. And I will admit, I was totally unprepared for the job. I mean, I knew golf, I loved people, I loved juniors, but now I was thrown into this, you're running a business, you're running a nonprofit business, and I had to learn on the fly, and which was great. I learned a ton. And I got to give credit to the AJGA board of directors and our chairman, Digger Smith, who always gave me and the AJGA staff the opportunity to come up with the strategic initiatives and the ideas to move the AJGA forward. Unlike a lot of golf organizations where it's kind of mandated from on high down to the staff, we were able to be more nimble, more creative, put some new ideas quickly into place. And so I've been forever grateful to our AJGA board of directors for that.
That's really neat to hear, and it's kind of it's always, and I think we'll get into it a little later as well. But the AJGA has seemed to always be on the forefront of just kind of pace of play, stances and approaches in which to keep pace of play moving quick, and I think we'll get into it a little later. But the one thing I wanted to touch back on when you said you were just so impressed with these kids and their demeanor and how they act, and I think it's people look at it even today, and when you look at junior golf, they say, man, like those kids are mature well beyond their years, and it seems to kind of keep reaching a younger demographic. You even look at, I think, 7 and 8 year olds anymore, and it's like these kids just have this demeanor about them because I think they're looking at organizations like yours and looking up to their, the professionals that they idolize, like Jordan Spieth, like Ricky Fowler, and saying how they approach the game is how I want to play. So, I mean, you have kids that, I mean, you see it all the time in bright orange suits because of, of Ricky Fowler, and the Under Armour head to toe because of Jordan Spieth. And, guys like that went through your organization. And I think I'd like to see that too, of just like, how many kind of high profile players have gone through the AJGA and really kind of made their, I wouldn't say made their career, but just made the name for themselves in the junior golf level through the AJGA?
Well, I think to answer your first part of that question, I really think you look at the pros that are out there and the way they conduct themselves, obviously great role models for the young men and women, but also if you think about the game itself and you boil it down to the basics, golf teaches us that we're responsible for our own actions. You hit it in the woods, go find it and get yourself out. In golf, we get bad breaks, part of life. So I think these kids get exposed to some of life's fundamentals really early. You're not going to get all good breaks. You're going to have bad days. You're going to hit bad shots, but you go get it. It's not a coach. It's not a player. It's not a referee. No one to sit there and complain. It's all you. And so the second part of your question was, I mean, the first player that made a major impact for me was Phil Mickelson. And Phil was playing in a tournament of ours. We used to have an 11 to 14 division and a 15 to 18 division. And he won the Lake Tahoe tournament as a 14-year-old, being the oldest in the 11 to 14. So he comes back the next year as a 15-year-old in the 15 to 18. Now he's the youngest. He shoots 70 at Edgewood Tahoe, 30-mile-an-hour wind. I mean, a hard golf course. And there was a reporter there and said, Phil, look, I get that you won last year as a 14-year-old, but now you're 15. Did you ever think you'd be leading the 15 to 18 division as a 15-year-old? And very sheepishly and shyly as he puts on, he goes, sir, with all due respect, every time I tee it up, I think I'm the one to beat. This is a 15-year-old. No, I'm going, I mean, there's something, how many 15-year-olds think and are willing to speak like that?
There's the age-old saying, they're just cut from a different cloth, and that comment could not be truer, I think, with Phil Mickelson.
Absolutely.
And I think it kind of just goes back to what you were just saying, on the fact that you hit it in the woods, you have to go find it in the woods and figure a way to get it out of the woods.
Right.
Like, you don't have really anybody or it's any type of team or like little backbone support that, okay, well, these kids, can bail me out a little bit. I can like slough it off. It's I'm doing the work, I'm creating that shot, and then, oh crap, now my back's up against the wall. How am I going to get myself out of that? Right. And that's not something that you really put into a kid's hand, 99% of the time. Right. These kids are out there, they have a good time, but this is definitely a different sport to where, you're getting put in the driver's seat pretty damn quick, and that you're going to learn today. And I think it just goes back to that. So it's kind of like you said, you got to have a couple screws loose in your head too, but I think you got to learn quick on that aspect, especially if you're playing the game of golf, that you're going to have that type of mentality, because it's you, yourself, and I.
So you do. I think you do. You learn to be calm in a bad situation, calm in a good situation, because you know that things tend to level out on the golf course. Couple good breaks, couple bad breaks, it's going to happen.
And I think too, when you have the talent of a Phil Mickelson, or, just any of the greats that started early and played well early, they had some sort of swagger about them, man, that they knew, all right, if I hit it somewhere, well, I'm going to make a shot to recover, and I'm still going to be in an okay spot. And I think, the level-headedness at such a young age separated a lot of those kids, like Phil, like Tiger, and like the modern kind of really good players. It's just overall level-headedness.
The common denominator between the Phils, Tigers, the Jordans, and the Rickies, even at a young age, was their mental makeup to think that they could execute any kind of shot in any kind of situation and would pull it off. Their confidence, and it wasn't cockiness. It really wasn't. I mean, Jordan Spieth put on a press conference one time that I just was shocked at some of the things he was saying, but it never came off as cocky. It came off as, I know I can do this. And that's what they all share.
And when you have when you have the results too, a bunch of my coaches growing up always said this, and I think it's very true. It's not cocky if you kind of, if you can approach it from an angle of saying, well, I've already done it, or I am doing it. Cocky seems to have like, an inability to back things up. But
right.
when you say, well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to, contend for this title, and then you do, there's proof in the pudding in that. And then it just goes on to, back your story up.
That's right. That's right.
Now, it's pretty sweet because that story of Phil Mickelson it goes on to, speak words of the career he has. He still holds the record for having the most wins in a year, or most wins over a career, I believe, in the AJGA. And that's just pretty crazy to think that, that many years ago hasn't really been contended with.
Right. I remember he was our only, well, on the boys' side, he was the only 3-time Rolex Junior Player of the Year. Vicky Getz was on the girls' side. But I remember him playing as an 18-year-old, and, they were all saying, why are you playing as an 18-year-old? You're 2-time Rolex Player of the Year. You've won Rolex Tournament Champions. You won everything there is to win. Why are you playing junior golf as an 18-year-old? And he said, because this is my last year to be a junior golfer, and I'll never be a junior again. And all my friends are out here. We're having a good time. We're having fun. And and he did the same thing in college. You remember him winning the Tucson Open as a junior, and then, went back for his senior year, and he let go of a year of eligibility on the tour. And he said, I'll be playing the tour for 40 years. So then,
yeah, I mean, at the time it goes back, it's like, who says that? Like, come on, like, are you kidding me? Like, take advantage of what you have in front of you. And I think,
right.
99% of the people are like, you have a year on tour, take it.
Right.
And then he goes back and has a phenomenal senior season in college.
Yeah.
And as the history books have written, a phenomenal professional career. So obviously
right.
he knew a little forecasting into the future more than the rest of us. But
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, let's touch on that too. So many people seem to force these kids into, oh, you're playing phenomenal now, and you need to take advantage of, I guess, while the iron's hot, press it. And, have you seen from your side of things that dynamic shift over the last decade or two of people maybe, getting hot as a junior golfer and maybe trying to forego junior golf, as you're 17 or 18 into the professional ranks, maybe a little too early? Is that kind of like a shift you're seeing?
Yeah, I've seen enough of it to be concerned for sure. I believe there's a process to player development. And if you look at all the good players. They started locally. There was a teacher involved, a good teacher, be it a PGA professional or a parent or whoever. There was a good teacher. They excelled locally, began to explore, statewide, region-wide, went to national competition, be it AJGA or other, went to college. I think college is so underrated because that's our opportunity to get away from our parents, right? I mean,
absolutely.
And to
Mhm.
become,
Yep.
we made our mistakes. We stumbled. We picked ourselves up. We did some goofy stuff. We got away from our parents. We grew up. And I think that's a huge part of the process. I think college golf is imperative because I think it gives you a time to mature, to develop. Look, I will tell you for a fact that a lot of kids on the AJGA can strike a golf ball as good as anybody. But do they have all the intangibles, the maturity, the confidence, the routine, the practice routine? Do they know the mental toughness? Do they have all that? Or do they need a couple years in college to gain some of that? I'm not saying you're ever going to be perfectly ready to take on the PGA or LPGA tour, but I think missing college is a huge mistake from a maturation process.
I totally would, 100% agree. And I think you missed too, just the team atmosphere, because how many opportunities are you truly going to get to in the game of golf play on a team? Now, granted, it's still individual. You're still playing your own ball, and it's not a true like Ryder Cup format or anything like that, but it's a team format, and you
Right.
don't get that when you're traveling on your own playing these tournaments. You develop friendships, and groups of people who you interact with all the time consistently, but you don't have a team. And I think a lot of times when you cut college short too, you're cutting those team experiences short. The times on the bus, trip to trip,
Yeah.
the time on the plane for a lot of D1 schools.
Yeah.
Just the overall team experience too is something that, and I think Dante can touch on even, in his college experience, is just the team atmosphere, man, is the number one thing kids that go to college, they miss as soon as they're out of college, is just having that team around them.
Such a fun part of golf. And you've got a coach, hopefully you've got a coach telling you when it's good and telling you when it's bad. And you've got that mentor-mentee relationship that, you may have that with your mother or father, but this is different. This is an outside perspective, which I think is critically important, again, to your development. Someone's going to shoot straight with you like a straight up coach. Perfect.
And then going back to like the peers aspect, not only like the friendships that and like the whether it's like an unwritten fraternity sorority that you're making. I mean, it you pick their brains too, so you're
Right.
developing these relationships with these kids. You develop these bonds, but at the same time you're competing with each other for 1, 2, 3, and 4 spots and 5th spot, the starting lineup. And then you're also picking their brains on how these are your peers, and they're also your competitors. So it allows you a chance to pick their brains and how they, walk through their mindset throughout the course and how they prepare. So it's something that you can take with you throughout your college career. And even if you decide to take it to the pro level, take those different bits. So like you're saying, it's a different part of the process. If you were to just say, hey, I'm going to jump from the AJGA and just jump right into the PGA, I think, like you're saying, is that you're just missing a huge step. And not alone, I mean, if you're fortunate enough to and have the skill set to get some of these fantastic D1 schools, I mean, the trips that you take, the chartered jets that you're taking, I mean, you are living like kings and queens if you have certain opportunities in the facilities. I mean, I've Googled and YouTubed a day in the life of like a D1 golfer and have seen like the facilities that some of these kids had the opportunity to have. I would definitely recommend, if you have that opportunity, to take that chance and give yourself those 4 years, because like you're saying, like Phil said, he had 40 more years of the PGA to play. And on a golf standpoint, that's one sport that you can still play the rest of your life and still compete. It's not like the NBA or the NFL where, you better get in as soon as possible because they're looking for younger guys. And by the time you hit 25 and 30, you're considered old and you're on your way out.
Yep.
It's take advantage of that. Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, there's something to be said, and you're seeing it more and more, I think, today too, with the likes of like Oklahoma State, and then all of a sudden you're seeing Matt Wolff and Victor Hovland come on to the scene in the PGA Tour, and you see it all the time with, I feel like, Georgia alums and Alabama alums. It's just there's this almost like breeding ground in these college campuses, and Dante, like you said, state-of-the-art facilities nowadays. That are starting to rival those of, the football complexes. I mean, heck, these golf facilities are just, they're top notch. Number one, number two in the countries are at these college facilities. And it's nice to see, I think, some kids really taking advantage of it and using it as that like growing grounds of taking what they've learned in the junior, maybe on the national level at the junior level, and just kind of going tenfold and really building themselves into competitive professional players after their college experiences.
And think of the programs you just mentioned: Oklahoma State, Alabama, Georgia. Great coaches, lots of experience, lots of knowledge. Bratton played at a very, very high level. Hacker's been around the AJGA forever and coached some great, and Alabama's been a perennial powerhouse. I mean, just great coaches to help your son.
Yeah, I would say probably the number one constantly overlooked part of college golf or any golf for that matter is just kind of these, like you said earlier, the mentors that help these kids, shoot straight and just say, you're acting in the right way or you're acting in the wrong way. And, if you can go down one of two paths if you choose to do A or B. And everyone I feel like who has really truly succeeded has that kind of person they look back on their lives and say, that was my mentor, that was my guy or girl, or,
Yep.
And that's how I ended up where I'm at because of the realness that they were able to treat me with.
No question.
So now let's get back into AJGA and kind of how it grew over the years. I'm really intrigued on what that process was like from when you took over. Going from mid-teens tournament wise to over 100. What was that process like? And like just getting the awareness out there that the AJGA was this kind of perennial junior golf. And then, heck, 100 tournaments a year. What are logistics like in making that happen?
Well, when I first stepped foot with AJGA in '84, I immediately saw a lack of supply and an over demand for our tournaments. There was a void in junior golf. There was a thirst for competition at the highest level. There were kids all over the country that wanted to test their skills against the very best. And, we were very fortunate early on to get Coca-Cola involved. Thereafter, we got Titleist involved. And they gave us the financial wherewithal to go out and begin to grow the schedule. And we came up with the concept pretty early on to run multiple events per week. This was a dynamic shift in that we decided to one day run 5 or 6 tournaments a week during the summer, but do them in different regions: Northeast, Southeast, Midwest, South Central, Far West. Bring the tournaments to the kids, cut down on costs, cut down on travel, and make the earning of a college golf scholarship more affordable. And so that's what led to the growth of the AJJ schedule, saying, look, we've got all these members in Texas. and we need X amount of tournaments there. We have all these members in California. We have huge membership in New York. What are we, why aren't we there with more events? So you started really analyzing your membership, where they were from, and started putting events where the members were. And then the next thing was getting an ACE grant program, up and running, where once the first tee was initiated, I went to our board and said, look, it's not the mission and purpose of the first tee to generate national caliber junior golfers. That's not it. But as we all know, if you introduce the game to kids, they work hard, they practice, they get skills. Now they want to compete. Are they going to hit a brick wall? Or can we provide some financial assistance? So our ACE grant right now provides up to $5,000 a year that would pay for food, travel, lodging, entry fees, for kids who have the skill. Matter of fact, our 2 players of the year last year, both ACE grant kids.
Love to hear that.
So without that, they wouldn't be competing.
Yeah, and that was one thing I really wasn't aware of till kind of you just researching the background of the AJGA, and was so happy to find, because we talk about it all the time, golf, and it's just it's not our fault. It's just the way the world works. Golf finds limitations in people financially being able to afford some of the higher end, events and tournaments and so on and so forth, club memberships, whatever. And I think it's so great that that's kind of an angle that you guys were able to take and approach and kind of keep building every year too. Because there's so many kids out there, like you said, that they just find a passion for it. And what do you do with your passion? You play it and you get better, and you want to compete. And that finds no boundaries. Passion finds no boundaries.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's with you guys
last
have.
Year, last year alone, we served 220 kids through the ACE grant and reimbursed to their families over $400,000.
That's incredible. That's
pretty
really
cool.
Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you just said a number which I want to touch back on. That was almost double the budget when you first got to the AJGA. That's incredible.
Right. Yeah, we didn't. When I got there, we had no tournament sponsors, no national sponsors, and I remember the board. We actually came close to closing the doors. About in 85, 86. And the board said, look, you guys better figure this out because we're not going to fund this thing forever. So Chris Hack and I, behind closed doors, came up with the junior AM concept, like a pro-am. And we'd say, will these leaders of the community come out and play golf with a junior, have a lunch, a breakfast, some awards? Will they have a fun day and support the event? We went to the board and said, we think we can raise $130,000, which at the time was going to keep the doors open. And they almost laughed us out of the boardroom, thinking, who's going to pay to play with a junior golfer? Well, we ended up raising $160,000 that year.
So a couple people
kept the doors open. And, and then just caught some momentum and really, went from there. But the Junior Am, truly, that fundraising vehicle kind of saved the AJGA.
Now, is that something you still do till this day? Is a Junior Am?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That's incredible. An idea like that was just the last limb kind of saving grace is still around, 30 plus years later. That's pretty sweet.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, there's some events, some very well-established AJGA events that have to run 2 Junior Ams because there's so much interest in playing with the kids.
Well, and I mean, nowadays, and I don't know the caliber of players. I'm sure it was just, as good when you first started as it is now. I'm sure even better now. But, now you're looking at international competition and interest and play within your organization. And, from an outside perspective, if I was a paying customer, I'm playing with a perennial junior golfer that just has world-class talent.
Right.
And I think, I can see why the doors are being knocked down, because that's a heck of an opportunity and a really neat thing to be able to experience.
Yep. Yeah. The junior AM always exceeds people's expectations, which is fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. And now, how do people, I guess, go about seeking out a junior pro-am, or like finding that to participate in that?
Yeah, it's on our website. There's a button, giving back, and it says, how would you like to do? Would you like to volunteer? Would you like to host an event? Would you like to sponsor an event? Would you like to play in a junior AM? So there's a mechanism there through our website.
And that's just ajga.org.
That's right.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, guys, go there and check that out. That sounds like an awesome experience. We might have to jump in that ourselves one of these days. That sounds
You should, absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now, going off of that, we talk about kind of just, the AJGA being the example for junior golf. And one of those ways in which I've always understood is just pace of play. You guys have always sort of been at the forefront of pace of play. Even when I was going through high school and like junior golf before high school, the guys that I was playing against were always like, yeah, the AJGA is instituting this policy. Once you hold your putt, you don't wait around for everybody else. You go to the next hole, tee off, even if your other competitors still putting out. It's stuff like that where I always understood the AJGA as a pace of play, kind of innovator. But what are you guys doing in 2020 and beyond, whenever we pick up competitive play again, to kind of keep pushing a standard for pace of play?
We've been 25 years working at this pace of play program, and it all started, I was watching the US Open one time, and the gentleman running the Open was walking around with 3 stopwatches. He had 3 stopwatches on. And I'm going, that's not right. That's not the way pace of play should. The pace of play the onus should be on the players. I think the committee has to set up a fair time par, including the walks between green and tee, difficulty of the golf course, weather, what have you. But once a fair pace of play is established, and look, not every golf course is a 4-hour golf course. Mm-mm. Some are 4.5-hour golf courses. Some are under 4-hour golf courses. So you've got to determine what that golf course is. Is it a 4? Is it a 4.5? Once you do that, now it's the player's responsibility to hit those checkpoints. And now it's kind of like, hey, sorry you guys didn't make it, but here's your red card, and you got to get going. So we've kind of perfected this over about 25 years, and we're still learning. We're doing things. I think the most recent change was there's a difference between pace of play and dealing with a slow player. And while we had pace of play pretty much nailed, we didn't have a good system for dealing with a slow player. So we've gone to where it used to be 3 warnings, and then your 4th bad time was a penalty, and only if you were on a red card. 2, we don't care if you're green and in perfect position, you get 1 bad time, that's your warning. You get another bad time, and it's a penalty.
Now, take the folks through the card system that don't really know of or understand how that works to further your point on the warning that you were
So
giving.
we have a checkpoint every 3rd hole. So we have 6 checkpoints. You miss the first checkpoint, and when you miss, I mean you're beyond your time par that we've established, and you're beyond your pace with the group ahead of you. So both things have to be wrong for you to get a red card. If one of the two are correct, you're good. So if both are off, you get a red card. Now you got 3 more holes to make that up and get either back in position with the group ahead or back on your time par. You do that, the red card goes away. And that's how we do it.
So if you're, say, waiting for another group in front of you on the tee, say they're hitting their tee shot and you're coming off the green and you're waiting, but you're behind your time, you're in perfect position then.
Perfect position.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha. So yeah, I mean, it's always been my understanding, and that kind of just, made it concrete that the AJGA is always working on pace of play. I mean, I looked at, the average pace of play for a round in tournament is under 4.5 hours for you guys, which is
That's right.
incredible in any round of golf in any level.
Right.
I can't tell you the last time I played a tournament in 4.5 hours. I can tell you that, and that's grown men. So that's impressive. And I think it speaks to just, the ingenuity and, steadfastness of trying to get better within the AJGA.
Well, I never wanted other organizations, be it college, be it professional, be it USGA. I never wanted people to go, well, see all these slow players, they're coming out of junior golf. And, no, they're not. I think we have a moral responsibility, whether it's pace of play or code of conduct or respect for the rules or respect for your fellow. We have an obligation to the industry to teach young men and women the right things to do. And pace of play is one of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the all-encompassing kind of aspect of golf, like we touched on earlier. It's helping young women, young men to grow up to be proud adults. And, it's bigger than the game of golf. It's the game of life. And, we talk about, just being on time to places outside of off the golf course. And that goes back to the pace of play policy. And it's just nice to see that that's such an important thing, because it's taken center stage on the PGA Tour lately, and a lot of other professional tours, European tours, instituting some shot clocks and stuff like that. But I think anyone who's played professional golf, or even, any kind of competitive golf for that matter, hates to see an official with a stopwatch coming at him. I know, I've been put on the clock a few times just as a group in like US Open qualifiers, and you play an entirely different game. The minute you're told you're on the clock from a guy that's clicking the stopwatch every time you put, you set down your bag and pick it. It's like that, like you said, it's not the way pace of play should be approached.
Right.
But it puts you on edge when you are put on the clock.
Right. So, absolutely.
Giving kids the opportunity to, have a system where it's not, you're not just one and done. It's a system of checks and balances kind of deal. You can get back in play. It is, I think, a great way to approach it, and adds for some leniency in there to, right your wrongs, if you were to say. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's very cool. Now, looking into 2020, obviously it's a very kind of weird situation where we're always, I think it feel like it's day by day to kind of know what the true outcome is going to be of all this. But you guys have, kind of put out many updates as far as, how the AJGA and board of directors is getting together constantly to work on those things. As of now, end of April, what is the outlook for the AJGA and kind of just the state of junior golf within your organization right now?
Well, there's a lot of effort being put into different contingency plans, since no one knows what's going to happen. We've gone through plan A, B, and C. I think we're on plan D right now, which is a mid-June start, which I think is a little ambitious. However, we've got plans if we have to start July 1 or July 15th. We're moving events. Some events can't move and we're canceling. So we're just, it's a fluid schedule. But we're working hard every day, talking to our venues, talking to our sponsors, making sure that the venues are going to be ready for us if and when. We've made application for the small business loan. So we're trying to put ourselves in a position where we can succeed. I've promised the AJGA staff that we were not going to lay anybody off or furlough anybody. We made that commitment to them, which is great. I gave everyone a great sense of peace there. I've got 65 employees, full-time employees I've got to, take care of. So we made that commitment. I feel good about that. But just every day I'm learning something new, and we're coming up with new ideas. We sent a request out to the entire staff. Hey, help us with cost-cutting ideas. They sent me back 300 different ideas. So, I mean, it's kind of, there's a lot of energy in trying to beat this thing and be successful in spite of it.
That's awesome to hear that, organizations like to talk about it all the time, but I feel like you guys have kind of really been the mantra of that, of just being one big family for one big cause during all of this. And just kind of trying to, like you said, getting over 300 emails back from 65 employees on just ideas and cost effective, maybe practices and stuff like that. It's just awesome. And I think it speaks to the greater goal of everyone within the country right now. It's just, man, let's work together and get through it together. And we're going to come out of this on the other side better than ever. It's great to see that, junior golfers have such a great organization like you guys to kind of lean on, because it seems like, through the years, just time and time again, whether it's the ACE program or just different college golf scholarships you're able to attain for these junior golfers, you've always been there for them. And it's great to see that, throughout all of the crazy times that we're in right now, you're going to be there for the junior golfers after all this is said and done as well.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, Stephen, really appreciate you joining us today, and we hope to hopefully be back on the golf course competitively, like you said, ambitiously in sometime in June. But in the future, there's no doubt about that. We'll return. So thanks for joining us this evening, and we really appreciated your time.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate being a part of your program.
Absolutely. And as always, guys, get out there, support the AJGA in any way, shape, or form at www.ajga.org. For the last good part of 30 years and more, they've been supporting and harboring junior golf, and it's definitely something we always can get behind and, put on a good face for these juniors in the time of hardship, and they'll, I'm sure, bring back some great experiences and great stories for us down the road. So as always, guys, take care and enjoy the walk.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
That's the stuff. One shot at a